I want to tell you something that took me 77 years to say out loud. I was an angry woman, not occasionally, not when provoked, not the kind of angry that comes and goes and leaves room for the soft parts. I was angry the way some people are tall. It was just what I was. It was in the room before I was. My children knew it. My husband knew it. My coworkers, my neighbors, the checkout clerk who was too slow. Everyone around me spent years adjusting to my anger the way you learn to live around a draft in an old house. You put a towel under the door, you wear an extra layer, you stop expecting warmth from that particular direction. I did not see any of this for 76 years. I genuinely did not see it. My name is Gloria. I am 77 years old. I have a daughter named Patricia and a son named Dwight. I have 4 grandchildren. I was married to a man named Bernard for 39 years before he passed. He was a quiet man, a patient man. I used to think his patience was a personality. I understand. Now it was several. I want to tell you what changed, because something did change. And it changed in a moment so small that I almost missed it. And if I had missed it, I do not think I would be sitting here able to tell you what I am about to tell you. I grew up in a loud house, not loud with joy, loud with tension, the kind of house where everyone talked over each other, because if you waited your turn never came, where feelings were not expressed so much as detonated, where my mother's mood set the weather for the entire family, and we all walked around checking the sky. I learned very young that soft did not survive, that if you wanted to be heard, you had to be hard, that if you wanted to be safe, you had to be the most dangerous thing in the room. I did not know. I was learning this. Children never know what they are learning. They just absorb it. They breathe it in like air, and it becomes part of how they move through the world. By the time I was a teenager, the anger had become a kind of armor. By the time I was an adult, I had forgotten I was teenage. I was not a monster. I need you to understand that. I cooked meals. I attended school plays. I drove to every practice, every recital, every appointment. I worked hard and I provided and I showed up, but I showed up with an edge. There was always an edge, something slightly to bend the response, something that made people measure their words around me, something that made my daughter, when she had something difficult to say, take a breath first, just a small breath, the kind you take before you walk into a room you are not sure about. I noticed that brief. I just told myself it was her being dramatic. Coleman, I need to tell you about happened on a Thursday afternoon. In October, my granddaughter, she was 8. She is 9 now. She had come over after school. She does this sometimes. She waits at my house until her mother finishes work. We were in the kitchen. I was trying to get the lid off a jar. One of those ridiculous vacuum lid things that they make now, as if they want you to call for help. And it wouldn't open. And I had already had a difficult morning. My back was bad. I had gotten some news I didn't like, and I was mild. And the lid wouldn't open. And I made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. The kind of sound I had been making my entire life without noticing. Frustration escaping through my teeth like steam. And I looked up. Lily was watching me from the table, and she had gone still. Not the way children go still when they are curious. The way children go still when they are uncertain. She had pulled her feet up under her on the chair just slightly. And she was watching me the way you watch something you are not sure about. She was 8 years old, and she was monitoring me. She was reading the temperature of the room. And I saw myself. For the first time in 76 years, I saw myself. Not as I believed I was, as I actually was. I sat down right there in the kitchen, and I did not say anything for a long moment. And then I asked her, Baby, are you okay? She said yes, but she waited a beat before she said it. That beat, that one small beat of a little girl, Delivore, it was safe to tell her grandmother the truth. That is the thing that broke me open. Here is what I understood in that kitchen. I had spent 76 years believing my anger was about the world, about things that were unfair, about people who let me down, about lids that wouldn't open and mornings that went wrong, and a life that had asked more of me than felt right. I had 100 reasons on any given day, real reasons, some of them genuinely hard. But the anger was not about any of those things. The anger was a language. It was the only language I had been given as a child to say, I am not okay. I am scared. I need something I do not know how to ask for. And I had been speaking that language fluently my entire life, into my marriage, into my parenting, into every room I had ever stood in. And the people who loved me had been translating it for decades, trying to hear the real thing underneath. Bernard had heard it. I think that is why he stayed. He knew what I was saying. Even what I was saying was the wrong words, at the wrong volume, in the wrong direction. He knew, and he loved me through it. And I never once told him that I knew he has been gone for 4 years now. That is the one that sits the heaviest. After that Thursday with Lily, I did something I had never done in my life. I called Patricia, not to tell her something, not to report something, or ask something, or handle something. I called her to say, I think I have been frightening to be around my whole life, and I am sorry, and I don't want to be that way with Lily. There was a long silence on the phone. And then my daughter, my 52-year-old daughter, who had been taking a breath before difficult conversations her entire life. Not sad crying. The other kind, the kind that comes when you have been holding something for so long that someone finally naming it out loud is more relief than you can contain quietly. She said, Mama, I have been waiting for that call for 30 years. I did not know whether to be proud of myself or devastated. I chose both. I want to tell you what I have learned since that kitchen, since that Thursday, because there have been almost 2 years now, and something is genuinely different, not perfect, not some transformation where the anger disappeared like smoke, but different enough that Lily sits differently at my table now. She doesn't pull her feet up. That is worth everything. The first thing I learned is this: anger that is never questioned becomes identity. You stop thinking of it as something you do and start thinking of it as something you are. And once it is something you are, there is nothing to change. There's only something to defend. I defended mine my whole life. I had reasons. I had evidence. I had a childhood in a hard world and more than enough material to justify the way I moved through rooms. But the reasons are not the point. The reasons never were. The point is what the anger does to the people who are trying to love you while you are carrying it. They do not experience your reasons. They experience your temperature. And if your temperature is always high, eventually they stop getting close. Not because they stop loving, because warmth cannot survive next to heat. The second thing, most angry women I have known, and I have known several, I recognize my own people, were not angry because they were hard. They were angry because they were exhausted. Exhausted from holding things, from doing things, from needing things they were never allowed to simply ask for. From being strong in a world that called their softness a liability and then gave them no credit for the strength. We turned the exhaustion outward because turning it inward was not an option. We had been taught. If I had known at 35 that what I felt was not anger but grief, if I had known I was not a difficult woman but a tired one, I think things would have been different. I cannot prove that. But I think the third thing, and this one is for anyone who recognizes themselves in what I am describing, the people who stayed near you through the anger. They did not stay because the anger was acceptable. They stayed because they could see the person underneath it. They stayed because the underneath was worth it to them. Do not make them pay forever for that generosity. Bernard paid. He paid with 39 years of translating me when I did not have the language. Patricia paid. She paid with 30 years of that breath before the hard conversation. Dwight paid. He moved to a different city when he was 24, and I told myself it was for a job. It was not only for a job. The people who love angry people pay a price that the angry person rarely sees because the angry person is always looking outward, always at the thing that caused these things, never at what the feeling is doing to the room. I was looking outward for 76 years. Lily's face turned me around. I do not know how many years I have left. At 77 with a bad back and a family history, I will not bore you with. I am not making long plans, but I know what I want the remaining time to feel like. I want Lily to come to my kitchen and not know what a monitored silence is. I want Patricia to call me on a Tuesday about nothing, the way daughters are supposed to call their mothers, just to talk without preparing. I want to be the warm room. I spent my whole life being the cold draft. I know how to be that. I mastered that. Now I am learning the other thing. I am learning it late, but I am learning it. If you are watching this and you know what I am talking about, if you heard yourself somewhere in this, I am not asking you to be ashamed. Shame is just more of the same. I am asking you to look around at the people who take a breath before they speak to you, at the ones who call less than they used to, at the child or the grandchild who has learned to read the weather in your face. They are not doing that because they are weak. They are doing that because you taught them to, and you can teach them something different, not by becoming someone else entirely, not by pretending that anger was never there, by naming it, by owning it, by making the call your daughter has been waiting 30 years to receive, by sitting down on the kitchen floor and letting yourself be cracked open by an 8-year-old pulling her feet up in a chair, by deciding that the life you have left is going to feel different from the life you have lived. You are not too old. I promise you, you are not too old. I am 77 and Lily sat at my table last Sunday and laughed so hard she spilled her juice. And I did not make the sound. I just laughed with her. It is a small thing. It is the whole thing. If something here found you today, if you recognize yourself or someone you love, stay. I have more I need to say, and I would rather spend the time I have left saying it than keeping it to myself. Come back. I will be here.